nobody else to get a break.
Stuck with you.
We're good to go, Tom.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order.
I will second it. If I have to.
We don't have to.
Okay.
Call to order.
Hey, you just stayed silent.
Okay, approval of previous minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 6th meeting. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approved.
There's a signature sheet.
It's the hand, but when I need to give it to you, it goes to pages.
There you go, Anthony. Thank you, sir. And trustee.
Yeah, sorry. So next,
This is the little packet.
yeah, yeah. It had like 36 pages, which when that the one I'm like, I was gonna print them out now. Just look.
We made copies and stuff. We,
Yeah, but I mean,
we
I was
killed
gonna print
trees.
them out at my house.
Oh, no,
Just take a
no.
Look at them like, you know, like, oh no, I'm getting on my iPad.
Are we on the annual report? Okay. We'll just kind of go through this. Obviously, this is the main packet for as far as the state required annual financial report. I'll go through that. There's also in here just more of a review. It's just kind of some highlights. It's not an official report for the state. It's just something for in-house, something we might put on Facebook, but not anything. If we don't have time, we won't have to dive into it because we'll talk about a lot of it here. I'll go through it, and then if you guys got questions, we'll go over those at the end. Just that way we can get through this big booklet here. First page, excluding the cover page there, is just your financial snapshot based there, beginning balance into 2025. Obviously, we started with $34,706.80. Ended with $3,066,192.25. I usually look at it, if you see the payee account non-township funds and the payroll deductions, those are non-taxpayer funds. The payee accounts are all their Social Security funds. We just process them. We have to put them on the annual report for reporting. So I usually try to take those out of my calculation, but for Gateway, we put those in there. So for receipts for what we took in minus the payee and the payroll deductions was about $2,511,672.85, and we dispersed about $2,443,772.12. Our overall disbursements for 2025 were actually $115,010.94 less than 2024. I know we had a couple of the capital projects in 2024 that made it a little higher. Even with assistance going up in 2025, we were actually below our disbursements from the previous year, which I hope to be a downward trend to say, hey, we're going down back to where we can meet what property tax levy or expectations that will come in the future. So a better trend there. I'll go through individually on the funds here in a second, and then we got about $101,000 more in receipts. Property tax is slightly higher, but our lit distribution was a little bit more. If you go down the next page here, it just talks about the receipts that you get for the year, just broken down by fund. So you can see that most of our property taxes are split between general fund and poor relief. And then we obviously still have a fire levy. So we have a little bit going to fire fund, but most of our big property tax civil share is going to go always to our general township assistance, or it says poor relief here still, and then your park and recreation fund. And then we still have a cumulative park fund and a cumulative fire fund, which at any time, we're not taking a budget out on those, but we can turn those off. We were just trying to build a little bit of capital in there. Then you go to the next page and it starts talking about the fund disbursements. And you can go through here. Obviously, it's split by fund, so it starts with the general fund, salaries and wages, office supplies, or supplies in general, and then services and charges. So that is our total for those. And then poor relief. Poor relief is kind of split between poor relief direct assistance, which is more towards the bottom, and then poor relief, the overhead that goes into the salaries that contribute to the people that either work at the front desk or work in the payee department or work as a caseworker. So those are the salaries that go into that. Again, the assistance for 2025, our dispersed assistance amount is $640,282. Our TA7, which is in a couple pages later, shows a higher number, but that's because the claims that we pay out in December don't get paid till January, but the actual assistance granted in 2025 will be higher, but the one that's actually, the checks are written was for $282,002. It is actually, from that, the dispersed amount is less than 2023, but it's the TA7 amount of actual assistance granted is more than 2023. So those are the two highest years of township assistance that I could find on the record. Typically, we've been floating in the 400,000 range. It kicked back up again this year. Not going to say it's what's attributed to it. Obviously, it's the same things that we've been dealing with for the last 5 years, whether it's housing, the increasing utilities, that obviously everybody's feeling the pains from that. But it's just getting to a point where housing, as you can see, is taking the bulk of our assistance amount. And our guidelines, what we try to follow is the HUD standards for Howard County, and we are not able to meet those thresholds. Like, they're not adjusting fast at how much rent rates are going to be right now. So we try to update them annually so that they're more reflective of what's going on this year. And that next meeting we'll have next month, we'll have my caseworker supervisor look at what they're doing at the HUD national level, and they usually give you a COCOMO statistic, and then we adjust it so that when requests come in, they're not so far above our standards that we can't assist them. So that continues to be our foot traffic was increased this year. So I have some stats just from our visitor management system that's not going to be in Gateway. Typically, I think we get around 5,000 to 6,000 people. This year was about 7,000 different township visits. Now, it's not all township assistance visits. It could be payees. We have payees come in on certain days of the month. The food pantry has picked up some traffic that we didn't used to have. So the foot traffic is starting to pick up. Don't know if the trend is you never know if you go into the next years and you just stay there. Cause that 1 year I was worried, I was like, is this the new normal? And then we went back down a little bit in 2024. So we usually can kind of tell after we get out of the winter months, because people are on EAP, which is Area 5's program, whether it's going to start trending. But when we get to the summer months, like, what was it, May, June, July, and August, just the rental rates or the rental requests shot up, and we were overwhelmed. Our staff was overwhelmed because we have people here every day, and it's like we can only get through so many people within the required 72 hours after they file their application. So you're just trying to get everybody in, get their inspections if they're getting rental assistance, and trying to get them out in a timely manner. So we had to powwow in the summer and say, look, I know this isn't easy. It's not easy to interview somebody that comes in on their worst time. And we're overloaded, so you're going from one right into the next, trying to finish the notes on the cases. So there, it reflected that it was really busy, and we could see that through the actual assistance granted in 2025. Then it goes down to the other funds where you get to the firefighting fund. The only thing we disperse out of that right now is the $80,000 contract that we have with the city of Kokomo. There's no other expenses we really ever pay out of that. And I believe that contract should come up to negotiation within the fall of 2026. So it'll be something we have to carry over to the next elected officials or whoever it may be. I know I built it in there where there's a gap so that it could cover, because I know that one time when we switched to volunteer fire departments, We didn't really have a buffer window, and it was like December 31, what's going to happen on January 1? And I wanted it to carry into January so that way they can re-sign the contract, whoever it is, and give them enough buffer to negotiate that contract with the city of Kokomo. And then if you go down to it, it is the breakdown of all the disbursements again by vendors. So every vendor that we contract with or make payment with or employees are all listed here on the next 5 pages at least. If you got single pages, probably more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you jump to page 19, that is the end of that section there. If you look in there on the pay stuff, we don't put we have so many individual, we have about 75 representative payees. We don't have to detail their disbursements because it's technically a private person's transactions. If it was ours, then we would have to detail who we are paying money to. So we just put the blanket, how much is receipted, how much is dispersed, and that satisfies for this annual report situation. Can't see, my page got cut off here. Page 20. Do you have your title on that one? Because I can't see. It's like department, but by category. So I think they've just shrunk. It doesn't make sense. We'll skip past that one. It says the total government activities disbursements for funds with departments. We don't really have like true departments like a city would or a county would, but maybe it's taken a portion of it, but it's not the total disbursements that we've done through the whole year. There's a fund schedule here. We don't have any debt. We go back a couple more pages here. And then if you get to page 27, we have our capital assets. Obviously, the township has several buildings, a few vehicles. If you look here, it just gives the value on them. If we've done any additions to them, we've added that piece into them. I know in the park we improved the playground equipment. We've added that into the
It's page 30.
page 30. It says page 27.
That's at 30.
Yeah, we got some blank ones there.
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, something missing. No, now we're on it.
What's on the back page of
Are
that?
we in the capital assets, you said?
Yeah,
That's
that.
30.
Then don't listen to me about the page numbers because mine I thought was from the state form and it's different page numbers than you guys'. We try to update it as much as we can. We're not buying a lot of new things. Like occasionally we bought vehicles probably about 6 years ago. We don't usually buy those very often. If we buy a tractor or a new lawnmower, we'll add those there. But right now it shouldn't change too much other than if we have, if the park project change some of the construction in progress amounts, and then we change it down there at the bottom. So that's our total assets. We could get it appraised and see what the real value is, but we usually just use what the county assessor gives us in the spring to say this is the value of it, unless we know we bought it. If we bought the Traverse in 2020, then we know what it cost when we bought it, and we just use depreciation to figure out what the value is today. Is your guys' front and back or one page?
Mine's
Front and back.
Okay, so I'll try that. The next page will be all the community contracts that we do. Every one of them that we give funds to, we list them here if they're a nonprofit, and they have to do their own reporting with the state. So that's a requirement on their end. We're not in control if they don't comply with it, but we report who we give money to so that they can follow up with those entities. And then the next page would be your TA7. So we always say this is what kind of talks about the assistance program and some of the things that we do that maybe is not highlighted as far as a dollar figure. So here in question number 3A, it says total value benefits provided to recipients of township assistance. It's $691,100.00. That is, we have a very high assistance rate in Center Township. It's probably higher than most townships you're going to find in central Indiana until you get to the cities of Indianapolis or Fort Wayne or Gary. Per capita, we're one of the highest of assistance granted per population. So thankful that we've always been in the financial position to meet the needs of the clients. I know there's townships out there where they're like, we don't have funds, we can't help you. But this has always been, we were able to adjust last year and then do an additional appropriation for what was 100,000 that we did in the fall. We didn't use all the 100,000, but to make sure that our budgets were in balance, we did that additional appropriation in December. Wasn't, we were probably 40,000 over our original budget, but we've got a lot of requests. Total requests for assistance in 25 was 2,699, 575 more requests than we had in the previous year. The denial rate, that's confusing on here because it says total number of individuals denied, but that number isn't necessarily how many cases are denied. It's just how many people are impacted by denials. I usually say, and Anthony he has a sheet that we track, and it's kind of, let me say subjective, because we have people that have cases that are active but can't close them because they never brought their stuff back, but they're not denied until we close it. So there's about a 45 to 50% our denial approval rate. I think last year we were probably about 45%. And then you can see the amount of money on question 3B of how much denied assistance. So that maybe somebody that overqualifies or their rental is over our fair market guidelines. And, people always say, well, I was like, we're not even given, half, there's more being asked than what we're actually given. And if we had to give all of it, we would be financially, in trouble. But through our processes, I trust the process of the township assistance application process. We have an intake, we have an appointment, caseworkers do their due diligence. We always say we're not out. We had United Way come this past year, and they're like, well, we always hear the trustee denies us. And it's like, well, what does their denial say? What is the reason for denial? Oh, they didn't follow through with their application. And even if somebody's denied, they have a right to appeal their denial. And we go probably one of the few townships that gets called to the commissioner's office, and we go through the appeal process. We rarely lose them. Sometimes we'll have a discussion between, ours would be with Commissioner Dodd, and, we're like, hey, they didn't follow the rules that were in the application that we set forward, that, hey, this is what happens if you can't do workfare. Well, you have to be medically cleared or medically not disabled, but you have to have a doctor's note why you can't be on workfare, or if you're working, or if you're underage or taking care of kids. So we have reasons why people don't have to do workfare, but a lot of times they'll get assistance, and we'll say you have 200 hours of workfare. And once they get that assistance, they don't come back for a while. They come back in a couple months, 6 months down the road. We address them. They probably get denied because they don't want to comply with workfare. Most of the times, the denials are going to come from people just not following through. They came in, they started it, didn't come back, and then we write a denial out just to close the application. But at 45 to 50%, we're still at almost $700,000 annually. So we try to watch it, make sure we can adjust, because we try to budget. I don't want to budget too high, and we're not getting that much assistance. That's why I've always tried to keep it in that $400,000 to $500,000 range and have the ability to ask for an additional appropriation if the economics, situation, the environment is trending more towards going that direction. As you go through the TA7, it does break it down by types of assistance. Obviously, shelter is going to take up the most of it, so that's in section 7 and 8. Utilities is probably second to the most what we get requests for. Surprising thing is that I look back at 2024 in our food assistance, so we can do food vouchers. Usually if you're on food stamps, you can't get food vouchers from the trustee, but if you're pending, or if maybe you don't qualify, or say something happened to your food in your house or an emergency, we can assist. And the year before it was $50,164. So to say it reduced, I think, a lot to the food pantry and be able to offer people resources that's a lot quicker, because if you need food now, it's hard for us to address. We can do an emergency appointment, but if our caseworkers are booked up, we can't really always address it today. It might be tomorrow or the next day. But having the food pantry has, dropped our food vouchers that we've done. We tried to prepare for the SNAP situation. We said we can do them, but they would have to go through the application process. I think people started it, but it was resolved by the time everything happened. So we didn't end up doing any in that month. Healthcare, obviously townships can always do insulin. It's really decreased over the years. You used to be able to, if you needed insulin, you could get a doctor's note, and Herbst would call us, and then we would pay for it without doing the interview on a one-time basis. Since I've worked here for the last 14 years, I've seen probably 3 of them. I don't know if maybe the hospitals or the doctors are doing something differently than they used to, but it used to be something that people would come in for all the time, and we would start the application for an insulin claim a little bit differently than we would everything else, because the doctor could get them insulin now instead of waiting. Obviously, you don't want to wait if you have insulin and you're dependent on it. So we don't really get a lot of claims for that. Not that we can't do it. Like we talked about with the community contracts, Project Access was kind of huge for us for years, that we never really had to do medical claims because we would refer them to that program. Now that they're not really around anymore, I don't know if that will trick up, but we can't do everything medical. We can't pay for surgeries. We could pay for a copay for a doctor's visit, medication, stuff like that. Prescriptions have went down. We used to do a lot more prescriptions, but people I'm not too familiar with the prescription drug world, and obviously the costs have went up, but like we don't get a lot of requests for those things. Not that we can't help with it, just it's tricked down since probably 2017. Burials and cremations, it's rarity. We do burials. We usually lean more towards cremations because it's affordable. I've tried to sit down with at least Stout and Son and talk to them about, hey, making sure that if they talk to people, let them know if they need trustee help, to not, like, this is the route we're going to go. We can do a basic graveyard service, and we can do cremations, which we can do with Stout and Son, and I think there's another crematory on the north end of town that does them. So it got weird when you knew Frank, and he wanted to be the master of the burials from the chief deputy position, and he didn't want the caseworkers to interview him, and I was like, and he wanted me to do it at the time when I was running the finances, and I was like, I don't do casework. And that's probably the worst situation, to have to interview a family of a deceased loved one. So it's like, and we were only doing cremations, and I was like, I don't think we can do that legally. Like, if somebody has a religious objection to cremation, we can't force them to be cremated. But a lot of times what we see with people is that they start GoFundMes, and once they start GoFundMes, then they have to use that money before we would even consider kicking anything in. So sometimes those things so people, if ever see it and you see somebody, like, tell them if they really need help, do not do the GoFundMes. I get it. Like, if you want to have the big funeral, but like if they don't have any next of kin or they're very little family, like, trustees are the option. But once they start doing those other things and start planning their funeral out, then we're put in a position like we've had conversations with Stout, and like, we can't pay for all this. Like, we can pay for the basics, and it has to be basic at best. But it kind of fluctuates up and down each year. Somebody asked, we had that one, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, talking about, what about a child that passed away? Could you consider allowing them to put in there a little bit more? And that was kind of, for them to have a visitation. And I was like, I got kids, like, I understand, like, I don't know. Like, so it didn't come to our office, but it was, I think they called about it, and it's like, you don't want to be cold about it and say, no, I understand, everybody that has kids can understand, like, well, no, I don't want you to go graveyard service with your own child. So I think we were looking at the guidelines to kind of change it a little bit about if it was under an 18-year-old, you could do up to 2,500 instead of 1,500. But rarely, we don't get a lot of calls for that. It was one situation, and it kind of didn't come into the office. Then I think the next page goes down here through emergency shelter. With the resources we have, like during the tornado, we can put people up in hotels for emergency shelter. It doesn't happen a lot, but we can do it. We don't do very much of that, so it's very rare. And usually it says here non-township sources. The one thing at the very end of it that we do like to talk about is just the value of case management services. And, we do a lot of systems. There are townships that don't do very much, and talking with other trustees all the time is like, there's a lot of case management that's done on behalf of these clients. Not that we have to, but to make them try to either succeed from coming back to the office or continually being on the programs. It's just part of the job. it's a figure of how many case hours that they spend with them. So every time they call on behalf or interview them in person, they're logging this time, and then it adds a dollar figure to it. So it's not anything measurable. It's always been a thing there to say, hey, there's more to it than the just direct assistance that goes on, on your annual report as far as the disbursement. So that number there, yes, you could say, well, what is that by? It's calculated in the computer system and their hours that they log with each client. So, and then below that is something I think not every township does, but we kind of pride ourselves in, is that we do housing inspections. So every rental property, if it's an apartment, we're not going to go inspect the apartment because it's a commercial building. But any rental in Kokomo that's in Center Township, we send our housing inspector out. He goes out there and makes sure that the house is livable. If it's priced at a certain amount, that it's fair market value. They'll check for smoke detectors and things like that, even though it's, we usually buy some every year so that we can give to people so they don't not have smoke detectors. And we do that before they can get approved for township assistance for shelter. Now, utilities, we don't do all that, but for rental, and it helps validate that we're not paying out, all these rentals claims to properties that people don't need to be in, or are not safe conditions, or not, they're not paying a landlord something that doesn't deserve it. So that's part of our process. We make them sign off on it. But most landlords we have, thankfully, are all willing to work with us. At that point, I think they want to be able to try to help their tenants, and it's just something we have to offer them. So he goes out there into their houses, inspects it, writes a report, gives it to the caseworkers. And then that's it. There's a questionnaire back there about whether or not we offer pension, and we do to our full-time employees. But after that page, that is your annual report. So if there's questions on it, and a lot of stuff in this other packet, like I said, it's an internal report. It's not a state report. Just kind of talks about assistance and where we're at. One area that I'll talk about that's kind of different is the food pantry and kind of its impact in 25. It's not a financial because it's all from donated funds. But last year we were able to raise 9,453 pounds of donated food and $2,460 of donated funds. And we actually got more than that because Duke Energy for our community expo gave us $5,000 for us to buy food boxes for it, which was huge. So it wasn't a cost to anybody. And then they gave us $2,500 for any additional expenses for that event. So we have that in our donation fund. But the actual food, we do our food drive in March, that was what we raised it. And honestly, it helped us get through an entire year. And even in November, we extended our hours a little bit. We used to be Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? And even Friday. We changed up how we were doing. We were taking people in there to get the food because we'd seen some pantries that did that. And it does add a dignity where they can pick what they want instead of just give them a bag. So during the snack crisis issue, we decided to put everything that we had in stock on a list that week and let them pick and choose, and then us just give them the bag. So I can come back, back to the pantry and not really know, just give me the sheet and I'll go fill it up. And it's been good. I would say it's something that I've seen that other townships did. I wanted to make sure that it was donated so that if somebody happens to come from a neighboring township, I don't have to be like, well, you don't live in Center, go over here. As long as it can stay donated, then I don't have to restrict anybody to it. Most of the people are coming from Center Township. But, I told the other trustees in the county, I said, if you got somebody, just call us and we'll help them out. We're trying to make it faster because we were by appointment only. But if somebody walks in, we want to try to give them a bag of something so that they can, get through the day or get through the night at least. And then obviously the community service building, there were some stats on here. Still picking up. We rented it out 19 times last year, but it honestly might pay close to the electricity for the building. I have to see what the actual bill for Duke is, but it's something that was using. It had sat here for years. Gene had a vision of it being a garage and had a garage door on that side, and they pulled the tractor right out to Jefferson Street, and Rev had it deconstructed and put it up to be more of a training center. But it's like, well, we only use it so much. We have, we weren't doing board meetings in here at the time. We always did them where the food pantry was. So it was like, well, we don't want to just sit here. Like, we're paying the electric, the air to be on, the heat to be on in the winter. let's open it up and, make it cheap for residents. It's not huge space. We can't do all the things you can at other rental facilities, but if, graduation parties and baby showers and small family gatherings, around the holidays, we've seemed to get quite a bit of people to use it. And then we offer it to nonprofits to use for free. So if as long as they come in and fill out a form, we'll let them use it. And if they want to use it every month on a Tuesday, that's fine. Just make sure you get it on our calendar. And there's a group that meets, kind of competes with our time. We're like, well, we got to be in here. So I think last year we did one meeting over there, and I don't want them to go over there because that's a little different of a situation. We give them the key for this building so we don't have to manage it. And that was the biggest thing too, is like we don't have staff to come in here on the weekend to clean it up. So if you're coming in Saturday, we're not booking anybody on Sunday because we don't have the staff. We're not going to pay people to come in and do that. So still hoping. Darla runs that for us. She's kind of the master of it. So when they want to rent it, they call Darla and she checks the book. Couple other things, obviously the expo we did last year, we talked about, how we got the donations from Duke Energy. We were able to help 225 families. A lot of that food, some of that we put in the pantry, but what we do with some of the donated food is we give it to other agencies. If the mission needs it, if Gilead House needs it, if the vets, we always take it to Jackson Street Commons. We always get more than we can manage. And then we were like, hey, we even have a pantry and we don't need this much food. So we were able to distribute that food back out to everybody. We do a couple other events that are more township employee sponsored. I always say these are your guys' events. This is not a township funded event. We do a trunk or treat with the staff, and then we do cookies with Santa where we raise donations to get little toys and they take a picture with Santa Claus. So they're not anything that's township funded, just kind of a staff thing that we've been doing for the past couple of years and can continue to do since it's donated. And then there's the picture, obviously, of Township of the Year. And to me, that's not about me. It's about the people that work at the township. I've worked there it'll be 14 in October, and I know how much of a team effort it is. It's not all on the trustee to make sure the township goes. People that work there for 35 years, I think Connie will be 35, Tracy 34 years, Darla 17. So we got a lot of people that have been here and like I know what it takes. I've had to be on the other side where I'm part of that team to make it go. So that award was nice to have for those people that put in the hard work and the days and long hours and the extra stuff that they do with the cookies and Santa and the trunk or treat and all that effort they put in the expo. That I was proud for them. So that is all I got on the annual report, and that summary I kind of highlighted there. If you guys got questions, I'm more than glad to ask or answer them than ask.
Pretty well broke down, well done, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
So in the past, we used to have to put the whole abstract of it. So all those people's names, like we used to get mad, like, why is my name in the paper? They changed the law. We just have to have the attestation of accepting the report, and we put that little snippet. So it saved us because we used to have like a $150 page because ours was a lot bigger than everybody else's. But we would get vendors like, well, why is my name in there? Well, we have to advertise everybody that we paid. But we were the only government that had to do it to that extent at the time. And it was, for some people, it may be a $25 thing, but for us, it was like, well, we're taking up part of the legal notices portion, and they change it. So we just have to adopt. I don't know if I'm really accept and approve in whole. And I always question, I was like, well, what if they don't accept and approve in whole? Like, what is the other option? And they never say what the other option is. I guess you could just object to it, but it doesn't change it. But we do have to approve the report or reject the report, and then we have to get it to the paper. So
By vote, or
I think I can do it by vote and then sign it. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the financial report.
Second.
All those for?
Aye.
Aye, those against? Motion carries.
I'll wait till you got done.
sir.
Oh, I got some. Tom's got to sign. The board chair or president has signed below mine. I forget that sometimes.
Just right above all three of those signatures, there's a line for you.
But then, will you put in there when you get it to pay? I don't know what day you're gonna publish it, so
Okay.
it says date of publication.
Do I date on so you don't come back next week?
Yeah. He'll call them first, then he'll put it in there, because I was like, well, don't put a date and they don't publish it on there. We won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. New business, the only thing, I did put in there, guys' packets was, when we talked last year through the budget cycle, was about bringing the proposals for the basketball court and the walking path. I talked to the attorney and I wanted, since it's the threshold of 50,000 below, we don't have to accept it or do a public bidding. We had a couple of them come back on our proposals that were over that $50,000 threshold. You have one from Play Pros, one from E&B Paving, and then we had one from Crenshaw Paving, which was for 35,000 or 49,000 if you wanted more. So that one would meet the threshold of that. That was kind of our direction of where we wanted to go with the basketball court. One, it's cheaper than the options that we got back. Play Pros built the playground structure that we have, and theirs was the highest. E&B Paving was kind of in the middle, and his was even and we're still kind of debating on the 35 or the 40. I don't really understand. I don't want to build something. I think what he says is if we don't redo the existing underneath the base, that it could sink, because what it's doing right now is sinking. And he says he could bust it up and just fill it back over, but it may sink back down in. So Anthony probably can attest more to what his motive was on that, but I think that he said you could do it for the 35, but you may have problems with it sinking in like 5 to 10 years.
We're gonna get longevity with that 49,000. You're gonna get,
So we had got these proposals for them, and then there's one for 39,640. So that is for the walking path. We had asked that separately from other people, and he was the only one to get back with us. He's actually the same company that did the parking lot project, which was way more affordable than what we had got priced out from E&B or in our study that we did a couple years ago. I talked to the attorney. I said, these are two separate projects. We're not taking these as one project. He proposed for this one. We have a proposal for this one. He just happened to be the same guy. And I said, is that fine? He said, yes. Make sure you have documentation. So I was like, I want to make sure that it's on record that these are separate projects, separate timelines of when we requested them. And he's been so far the cheapest person. And we know that his work has been of quality so far. Yeah. So he wasn't our first stop for the basketball court. I didn't really know who to ask. We kind of threw it out there to anybody that did concrete or playgrounds. And then I think, he said that he could do it too. So he got it back to us. If you guys are okay with it, I was going to wait till March because I didn't want to chalk up this meeting with this, but I didn't want it to get too late where we're not able to do it at this point where we got the money budgeted for it. So I know he's trying to figure out his schedule for the year, but I told him I can't do anything until I get all my T's crossed and make sure we're moving forward in the right way.
How good are these prices? But we've already,
I tried to get the walkway for free through a conversation with the mayor, and I kept asking the mayor because he said it to us one time. He said, well, we'll have somebody from the city come over. And I was like, are you gonna do it? And then I never heard anything else about it. So I was like, that'd be awesome. Yes, please. If you could take care of that, it would save us some money. But I think he was asking somebody in a different department, and I never got a word from them. And I just was like, I guess that's not gonna happen. So it sounded good. I was hopeful that I was like, well, the city will do our walking path. Sure.
did you call him and say, hey, remember when we had this conversation?
I emailed him probably about a month after,
Coffee.
but he said it was the same. I got to talk to the department head of this department. I don't know if it can't be the roads, but I don't think it was the parks department either. So I was like, well, we got to figure out if we're going to do a construction project or not, because you're going to get too late in the year and then it's out of the budget cycle. So I tried to look for ways to do that. I think I'm gonna go back to him about, Anthony's been trying to work on the sidewalk, because there's the 50/50, typically it's for homeowners, but I think the conversations he's had with somebody at the city, we might be able to qualify to have it reduced since it's a public walkway, but we'll repair it, but it's gonna take some work. So that one we haven't got solidified as far as a quote, but we are looking to work on that and hopefully do it through the city program, even though we're not a homeowner per se, they will qualify for it. We can pass out, man.
This Crenshaw, do you know if any of these work?
Our parking lot.
Oh, okay.
The parking lot,
So,
he did a basketball court
Delphi.
last year in Delphi.
He's I read on the website, pre-approved PennDOT contractor. So it must be pretty good.
Because I don't know. Yeah, I've heard of him being good now. He played Roseville.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. What about over here? You guys heard about that?
I was gonna talk about that in old business. Kind of still waiting on the attorney, but I kind of brought it to him that I said, somebody's approached us, so we're not necessarily selling land. Like, what procedurally do we need to do? Can they propose us to buy it, or do we have to offer it to auction? So he said he was looking into it, but he hadn't gave me an answer yet. So right now, I know that they're probably asking like what's going on with it because they want to move forward with their development on it. But I will, as soon as I get an answer from it, hopefully before next meeting, that I can tell you guys and then let the developers know whether or not what we need to do to be able to parcel it up. That's what I said was confusing. I said, well, it's not split parcel. So do we go to get the parcel split through the assessor's office? Or what do we need to do to make sure we're in compliance before, can anybody just come ask to buy our property? Do we have to sell it for auction, or can we accept it? Or do we have to have an appraisal or everything else? So I just want to make sure. So I'll put it on the agenda so that I can get the answer from him by that next meeting. But that was my goal. Old business, that was my old business.
Sorry, I did jump in.
It's all right. I don't really have anything else. Obviously, there's the state stuff going on. We don't know what's the future of township government. It's a short session, and it's been the two township bills just kind of heading to the same path. I think one's in the Senate, one's in the House. Who knows what's going to happen? Sometimes you think they may not get either one of them through. Sometimes you might get some type of Frankenstein bill that's the merger of two bills together. But I think the Senate bill got heard this morning, but I don't think they had a decision on it. So it's like, what's going to happen? So
Have you talked to other townships to see what they're thinking they want to do if it's the merging of townships?
in Howard County, we had a meeting last month, and I think not because of the legislation, I just think because of things that go on with township financials and them not having enough funds. Like I know at the last meeting, Taylor talked about possible merging with some other township if possible. I know the ones on the west side of the county have talked about it, but I don't know if that means they're receptive of it. I know Deb's Township in Monroe and Honey Creek, which is Kirk Smith, they've kind of had that discussion. And, we can't do it this year, so that the discussion kind of just becomes more, just conversations. But I think a lot of them are receptive to it because people just don't want to do the job anymore. People don't, there's trustees that have been trustees for 30 years. Nobody else runs for office, and it's just kind of, that's their thing. And then when they leave, it's like, well, who's going to take it over if you can't find a full board? Like, there's a couple townships in this county that have 2 board members for a whole year. It's supposed to go to the party. The party doesn't fill it. It's supposed to go to the commissioner. The commissioners probably have a hard time finding individuals to live, especially in those rural areas where, like on the, I think the southeast side of the county, they probably have 800 people at best, population-wise, and the trustee from there just kind of rogue. I mean, they've been subpoenaed to the state board of accounts every time they don't do their annual report every year. So when they call our office looking for that trustee, we're like, we don't know just about as much as you do. Like, we have a list of them, and we try to make sure we have the right contact information, because people will call us just because it sounds like it's the township or the county. But there's some of them where it's like, it makes sense. They did the study for Howard County internally. It was the trustees with Gene and Joyce Ansel and Diane Coons at the time, and they all did that, but the law allowed for referendum, and that was really the killer of it. And a lot of times it kills a lot. When it goes to a vote to the public usually doesn't want merging or consolidation. So that it died. They changed the law from that so that it could be the board's decisions. So if me and him boards decided we wanted to merge, they just have to do joint resolutions and it's over. You have to have public meetings, but you don't have to have the referendum. And the conversation started, but it hasn't. I don't know if it'll go anywhere unless things are forced, which that's kind of what the State House is trying to do, is try to force them, whatever manner is, whether it's turning over the city or if it's forcing them to merge with each other. That's hopefully, I think there's reform to be made. I don't think anybody, even if you're not in township government, you're like, oh yeah, it probably makes sense. Like, there's so many of them. Like, why is there so many of them? Why is there 11? Why is there 21 in one county? Like, what's the purpose of it? Maybe there is a purpose of it in the 21 county, but we don't know what it looks like across state. So hopefully, like I said, I think, the merging is the best option. I don't see merging townships of our size to smaller ones as beneficial. I talked to the commissioner about the bills, and he was like, well, you could be the county trustee. I don't want to be the county trustee. I don't think you want a township rate that reflects all over the county, because theirs are much different than what we have here, and that shouldn't be it. And then if you have a fire department, that really shouldn't qualify you to have to merge, because you have a different service aspect that the other ones don't have. But it may become a more, maybe the bill doesn't go through, maybe the other one doesn't go through, but people are going to start probably merging because of it, because they know that, like, there's a target on my back because I don't have this, and this. It's like, yeah, like another bill, Center Township is a target because they're municipally overlapped. I think your cost reduction is going to be minimalized. You could take, my position, 3 positions out, but to have an office of the size, you're going to have to replicate it to an extent. And then you have a deputy instead of the mayor really overseeing the program. Mayor or the town president or whoever, the town manager, if you had a small town, like, are they going to focus on poor relief and fire? We don't do fire, but poor relief. I think it becomes a pecking list for what they have to do and all their stuff that, yeah, I might have a deputy do it, but it's really my responsibility for all the stuff that I sign, the checks that go out, whether it's the payee program, my name is all over that. The notice of actions that go to people, my name's all over that. So yeah, there's things that, a deputy could do, I think, yeah. But I think it gives focus when we have people that pay attention to just this aspect. Because I think it is a sensitive matter as far as how there is, financial ability to take advantage of these systems. And we try to pride ourselves on being financially responsible and fiscally responsible and having oversight over that. And I think that's my opinion of why the township board and township trustee is important, because I can focus on the day-to-day and you guys can hold me accountable to make sure that we're doing those things. So yes, the city council and the county council could be the actors, but some of those, like the commissioners don't want to be the new trustees. The mayor's, they can put it here and make it a city public assistance, but then the unincorporated area goes to the county public assistance, but then the commissioners would have to oversee their districts, which would make them basically a trust. It seems very confusing. And that's why the other alternative is emerging, because it's like, well, there's some very inefficient governments out there too. Small, big, you know, you don't want to look at them and say, well, if you do fire departments, you're okay. But if you don't do fire, you're pretty much gone. That's not really like, we've never identified as a township that's focused around fire. That is the identity of some other townships, that we provide fire and it's needed where they're at. We happen to live in the city, and you know, I heard the annexation talks about whatever's going on the east side of town. I was like, they need to annex that little neighborhood over there at Darrow Chapel. And you don't have to extend out west where you're not, but like that little neighborhood over there is donut hole in the city, and they're going further east than Darrow Chapel. But I don't know where it's, you know, I hope it goes to a place that has some reform. I think it's needed. But I don't know what's the wishes of the legislation really. And it's the Senate versus the House version, and they're kind of different, but kind of similar at the same time. And it's kind of tricky, it seems like. So wait and see. It's supposed to be over in a couple weeks, I think. So for a short session, it's been kind of jam-packed for township government. So that's all I got as far as old business.
Staying with 4:30?
It's up to you guys. I think I know Linda was here for that.
I
So.
mean, because at 4 o'clock, that's kind
Yeah,
of.
we got,
hard for
yeah,
you guys.
I think we asked because we said,
Yeah, 'cause you
if
get
somebody's in our
off,
office
yeah.
and we don't want the caseworker to be in there alone, and sometimes we'll have people leave, but we'll try to stay to make sure that if there's somebody in the building, they're not there by themselves. 4:30, the next meeting will be about policy, so I'll try to get you guys those. It'll be our personnel policy, our standards and guidelines, and our internal control policy. So we'll get that to you guys before the meeting. That way you guys have questions and comments, we can get them updated before we adopt them.
They can give me a copy. Fine. Unless they have something they want to add. Okay. Okay.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
5:20.